How can I start a chicken farm in 2025? Well, we are talking of 2025 because 2024 is already finished. So we have to plan ahead. Starting a chicken farm, before you think about starting a chicken farm, ask yourself, how much money do you have? Or else, you will keep dreaming of starting a chicken farm forever. So first, how much money do you have? I'm saying so because the amount of money that you have is what will determine, one, what venture to go in, because chicken farming is in different segments, be it broilers, be it layers, or kienyeji improved. So then, what amount of money you have will determine what venture you'll venture into and in what amount. Why am I saying so? Like, what amount of money you have will determine what venture. Someone will argue and say, how is money different? Or how does the money I have differentiate itself from the venture I want to start? For example, you've taken a business loan. A loan has to be repaid monthly. There are some banks that do not give you a grazing period. So you get this loan, or there are some circles, you borrow this money and you have to restart repaying back monthly. So that is the type of money that you have. So if you have money borrowed that has to be repaid back monthly, then it simply means that we then go into a poultry farming venture that is going to generate us money either weekly or monthly. Layers can generate you that money daily. But after 4 months and a couple of weeks, to be on the safer side, let's give it 5 months. So if it's money that is borrowed from a loan facility, then you have to be very careful with that. Then you're looking at investing money in poultry business, and at the back of your mind, if you're going for layers, it simply means that you are going to wait for 5 months plus. Remember, there's a time that you're going to spend in building and setting up the entire thing. The same applies to kienyeji improved, and even it will take longer. Because for kienyeji, they have to first start laying. After they first start laying, you cannot incubate the eggs collected in the early weeks of production, simply because they'll be too small. They'll be too small. The hatchability is very high, yes, but then the chicks are going to be so small, and that is going to translate into their FCR being higher than 0.02, or their growth rate being low. And for the people that will buy your chicks, it simply means that you will not make a kill from it. In a nutshell, before you start a chicken farming business, understand what amount of money or what type of money you have, and what laxity do you have to spend it. What comfort do you have while you spend this money? When are you supposed to bring it back? When are you supposed to pay it back? After you've understood very well the type or amount of money you have, then now you're good to go. Let's hit the road. Guys, if you're new to our YouTube channel, kindly hit the subscribe button and let's move together. There are super nice episodes, more educative, that are coming. And by the way, I just came up with a fantastic masterclass. I might not say everything here, but everything and every detail, every business aspect, and every guide, step by step, is covered in our masterclass. And I've shared a link right in the description of this video. You can click on the link, access our website, and get to enjoy our masterclasses. For those ones who have already bought the masterclasses, they say it's a testimony worth giving. Now, we have understood the amount of money we have. You cannot start a chicken farm simply by saying that I have some land somewhere given to me by my uncle, and I have an old structure. So I'm going to start by that. That is starting chicken farming on a wrong foot. First, have the resources, and then now move to the next step. After you have the money, the market. I want to venture into chicken farming. So, after keeping my broiler birds for 6 weeks, where am I going to sell them? You must understand that the broiler market industry is a type of a market whereby your birds are ready, you have to sell them to the market, then you are not going to be paid instantly. When you deliver the next batch is when you'll be paid for the previous batch. That again takes us to our first point of saying the type and amount of money you need to have. If you're going for broilers, that is. Once you understand your market, then now you can go into production. Most people are encouraged to go into layers production simply because there will never lack a market for eggs. But at the same time, we challenge ourselves and say the market can flood. This was there before, but not today. So you say, even if the market is going to flood, I'm only going to work my way out and reduce my cost of production so that even if the market is flooded and the prices are lowered, I'm able to compete. So as much as you identify the market, then understand that market. And chicken farming is not a walk in the park. Let nobody lie to you that you take your savings and put into chicken farming without knowing exactly where you're going. The market can look so good, but when it floods, remember, that's the time now you start remembering or getting pressure of the money you spend for a whole 5 months plus running into millions and you're not seeing it come back. Don't be this type of person or farmer whom you always sit down with a pen and paper, and yours is always you start from the top going to the bottom. Like, my birds are going to be giving me this number of eggs. I'm going to be selling at this much. I'm going to be making this much. Where are you going to sell those eggs? To who are you going to sell those eggs? If this person refuses or this person is nagging you on buying those eggs, what does that it simply mean? It simply means that drop the price. If I drop the price, am I going to make anything? So that is now what I can term in a nutshell as market dynamics. So don't go by this common cloud or common story everywhere that there's a market. You know, you have to know that for a fact, if you go into these markets, many of these markets, someone will tell you, me, I'm always supplied eggs by farmer X, so I'm okay, unless you drop a little bit. Of course, there are times whereby these egg sellers or these people who buy meat will look for you, the farmer. But let that one be, let's assume that that will not happen. So first, identify a market. Before I started going into chicken farming, I really went down, identified my markets. I went for some shops. I went for some supermarkets. I don't go for the big supermarkets because they take long to pay. So I went for the small supermarkets, or I call them mini marts. We negotiated a deal. I confirmed to them that I'll be able to be consistent with my deliveries and supplies. And that's when I was given those orders. So for me, I started with the market. Then I was able to analyze my market, and I found this person telling me, supply me with this number of trays, X trays, in this period. I'll be paying immediately you bring the eggs. That was the thing that would make me identify my markets. But when someone would tell me, hey, I will pay weekly, I'll tell this person, let me go and think about it. Why? When I'm buying my raw materials to make feed, I will buy them on cash. If someone will tell me, supply me X number of eggs, I'll be paying this time of the week, I would not go with that. Reason being, I buy my raw materials on cash basis, I pay fuel on cash basis, I pay power on cash basis. So in this layer business, it's more of money has to go around. Then your profit margin is just sliced off, something small up there. We'll discuss that in another video, how much money you make in the poultry farming business, especially layers. So once you identify a market, then you're good to go. There are quite a number of ways you can identify markets, or you can create for yourself markets. I will discuss that in another video. That's why it is then good that you have the market dynamics in place. Don't go with this thing of whereby you say, for example, I'm using an example of broiler chicken farmers. Don't go with this common imagination, especially for people who are working and want to leave their jobs to come into poultry farming, which I highly discourage. Until I say, don't leave your work or a business to go into poultry farming until you watch the video I'll do a video for that, or basically until you watch 6 videos from now. That's when you can make up your mind and say, I'm gonna leave my job to go and do poultry farming. Let's go for broilers. I don't agree with people who say, I'm going to keep broiler birds and then I'm going to open a restaurant. I'll be selling my birds in my restaurant. Like I'll be processing my birds in my restaurant. Do you know that you will be practicing 2 ventures in one? This is a risk. Broiler production on its own. And then you're going to do another risk, setting up a new hotel on its own. Who told you or who assured you that you're going to get a sure and a given market for your food in your new restaurant? You would have started in the other way around. That's why I tell you, farmers, it is good that you start from the most difficult point, which I call it up, while coming down. You first set up that market for yourself, confirm that it is there, it is running, it is sustainable, then now you can go into production. You start by setting up the restaurant, get the clients, be able to know that I get this number of consumers who eat these kilos of meat in this particular period. And so if I am able to supply myself chicken, then it means that I will keep this number of birds at this particular time so that I can harvest this amount of meat and supply to my restaurant. But don't start from the farm and you go to the restaurant. Suppose you start by producing 1,000 birds and the restaurant is only able to consume 200 chicken in a week or even a month. You will be frustrated because I started with the first point of money. We have borrowed somebody's money, assuring them that you're going to do broilers. You're going to be paying back small installments every 6 weeks. The 6 weeks are over. We have meat in the freezer. That is money lying there. And even going down in terms of cost, because we are spending on power to preserve that meat. We are paying rent. We are frustrated with the restaurant not getting enough clients. We are frustrated back at the farm not being able to sell what we produce. And so then we have to start from the market, get to know what the market wants, in what amounts, when, then we roll down into production. We now know how much, we now know what amount of money. Actually, it's not about how much money. It's about what amount of money, what type of money I have. I will do, my next video actually I'm doing will be, I'll be talking about how much money you need to start a venture. So that will be a video on its own. But today I'm talking about what type of money. Now you know your money. You've identified your market. With money here, in the market here, it's time now to go down into production. You go back now to the drawing board and say, For me to be able to produce 10,000 eggs a month, because the sum total of the demand of my market is 10,000 eggs. That is one. Two, my market wants 10,000 eggs, but for how long? So as much as I'm going to produce 10,000 eggs, for a start, I'm not going to stock my birds in the same age. Simply because at the end of 56 weeks, my production will start declining. And therefore, I will be in production, but I'm not able to produce my 10,000 eggs as my market wants. And it simply means that the person I'm supplying to, or my market I'm supplying to, will start seeking alternatives to fill up that gap. And for information, if it's me given a chance to fill up a gap somewhere, you'll never get it again. Now, all that said, we now go back to the ground. How and where then do I start from? Before we start up this project, we look at what project am I going to set up and where. Reason being, if I'm going to set up a poultry production which is specializing in layers, I will not do production in an area that is cold. Don't do production in a cold area. Producing eggs in a cold area is going to be so costly. That means that you're going to invest more into an environmental controlled structure. Remember, we are looking at starting a simple project that is going to generate us income in profit margins equal to Europe. In Europe, there's winter. Harsh winters, harsh summers. Here we are enjoying the tropical climate. And so, we have to set up this farm somewhere whereby we are also able to enjoy the external conditions. When I was doing my master's research, we were calling them externalities. These are factors that you don't have much control over, more so weather. So any poultry venture, be it layers, be it kienyeji, be it broilers, will thrive in a warm area. When I say warm, don't convince yourself by simply saying it's always warm during the day, or this season is cold. There's another season it will be warm. So that season that is cold, what are you going to make? I take you back to the first point. This is money. What type of money are you having? So does it mean that during the cold period, that money from where you got it, you're being given a waiver or a window not to pay because it's cold? No. We have to get into production in an area that even if it is cold during the cold season of that place, the conditions are optimum for production. Remember, I told you in some other videos, when it's too cold, it simply means that the birds are going to feed more. But production is constant. Some of the feed is taken into heat generation. Production of heat to supplement, or rather to maintain the organs in their normal functioning form. Why should I go into that? Because if I'm feeding extra, it simply means I'm spending more. I should simply look for an environment that is conducive for me to produce. So identify a warm area. That is the first step before even you do the construction. Avoid areas close to mountains, at the foot of a mountain, at the foot of a mountain, on the mountain, on top of the mountains. That simply means that you're going to invest more in the structure. Get back to the drawing board and say, now that I have a market and I have the finances, you first say, I'm going then to utilize the little that I have. the little that I have in quotes, like already what I have. At my place here, I already had this wall as a fence. It was a fence for my compound, not in use. So I said, before I set up this poultry project, I already have my house built in 3 corners, in 3 sides. So I'll just add the front face. Then I have a chicken house. You see, I cut the cost of building the structure almost by 3/4, because I simply did roofing and then they did the 2 courses at the front and they were mesh. So first, then say I have this plain land somewhere. Then I'm going to build my farm on this piece of land. Or say I have this piece of land, let me see what resources inside that I can start with, then I can do my structures. Then go for simple structures. I'll do a video on structures. I've also done a masterclass on how you can build a simple but good structure. So before you think of setting up any project, then first have the finances, understand what finances I have, and then get the market. After getting the market, get down to what resources you have, then now do the structure on that farm. If it is broilers, you will be guided by the market on how or when and what amount of birds to start producing. And if it's layers, the same. What amount of eggs to produce and to supply where and when. That guides me into the next video, whereby I'll be discussing how to start a layers chicken farming business.